Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Deborah Lee, and I'm presenting my competencies research study of integrating classical Chinese philosophy and medicine into the primary and secondary school as a salutogenic framework for health education. I have been in private practice, move that out of the way, since 2002, and over the years, my pediatric patients have always been very curious about their health, diagnosis, and treatment, asking the many questions that children do. And I try to give them an understanding of how and why I'm doing their specific treatment and how and why their behaviors and choices affect their health and well-being. And it is their curiosity and continuing interest that inspired me to do this research. So I saw a need to educate children, but is there a greater need? Well, the United Nations listed 17 Sustainable Development Goals to be met by 2030, and they include education, health, and environmental goals. As of 2020, the SDG progress indicators on child health and well-being reflected that no country has currently provided the conditions required for children to have a healthy future. And then coming closer to home, we look at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Healthy People 2030 Initiative, which recognized that childhood experiences, behaviors, and health issues can have long-term impacts on health and well-being. And early investments in the health, education, and development of children have increasing benefits, not just during their lifetime, but also their future children and society as well as a whole. And then this is from research from Clark et al. And you can see on the right, I've listed some statistics on childhood health, and it is a bit alarming. So now let's look at the social economic impacts. Social determinants of health are the conditions in which people are born, raised, live, work, and age. Policy initiatives have been created to address inequalities and social determinants of health. The goal of the decade of education for sustainable development was to accomplish a change in attitudes and behaviors to secure a positive future in health, environmental, and economic circumstances. The National Prevention Council set a strategy to improve the social determinants of health by moving the U.S. from a focus of sickness and disease to one based on prevention and wellness. The World Health Organization has set an agenda to harness traditional medicine strategies. And the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health Strategic Plan followed suit by indicating the need to approach health from a whole person perspective to one of wellness. Now, health promotion is enabling and empowering people to take charge of their own health and quality of life, which is what traditional medicines do by addressing the whole person and their environment. The U.S. history of health promotion concept and implementation has varied from the late 1800s to the present day. It's mainly been focused on treatment of chronic diseases of the time. And this biomedical model lacks the broader scope and understanding of social factors' impact on health. In 1979, the U.S. initiated the move to a broader health agenda with the Healthy People initiatives. And the current Healthy People 2030 initiative is the first to include health literacy in its framework. And health literacy is the ability to access and understand health information in order to implement informed decisions on your health in daily life. And research has shown that health literacy interventions can help children learn and develop healthy skills that influence their lifelong health and well-being. And schools are the best places to teach children en masse. They can also bring home their new health knowledge to their families and communities. Now, formal health education within the school curriculum did not emerge until the early 19th century. It incorporated hygiene programs, physiology education, and the negative health effects of alcohol and narcotics. The World War I and II draft health examinations identified inconsistencies in school health education when 50% of the draftees did not pass due to poor mental or physical health. And in 1972, a school health education survey revealed health misconceptions among students in the 6th, 9th, and 12th grade within 38 states. Now, in order to correct the health education inconsistencies, The National Health Education Standards were first published in 1995 and later revised in 2007. They focus on current health issues, and doing this takes a pathogenic, disease-oriented approach, which is necessary to address current health problems, but it lacks a sound, comprehensive health curriculum. And if we look at the current health education curriculum, we see that it does not meet the National Prevention Council strategy to move from a focus on sickness and disease to one based on prevention and wellness. And the same is true for the NCCIH need to move to approach health from a whole person perspective and from wellness. Now, strides are being made through the nutrition and physical education courses, which support wellness and prevention, but the current comprehensive education is lacking in overall theory, which is what a salutogenic model can provide. Now, a salutogenic system of health provides a positive approach to health and well-being, which supports the national prevention strategies focused on prevention and wellness, the NCCIH strategic plans need to approach health from a whole person perspective, and also the UN Sustainable Development requirements to have educated, healthy people in a sustainable environment. So we've looked at why to educate children using a salutogenic model of health. Now let's see why we should use classical Chinese philosophy in medicine. Well, traditional medicines should be discussed as a salutogenic health education model because they are recognized as whole health systems of care. In the US, traditional health medicines include Native American, Native Alaskan, and Native Hawaiian. If we look globally, we'll see Ayurveda, Chinese and East Asian medicine, and Unani. Of all of these, only Chinese East Asian medicine is a licensed medical profession in the US. It is also the only traditional medicine to be included in the latest revision of the International Classification of Diseases. And it is for these reasons that Chinese medicine is proposed as a salutogenic model of health education in this research. Okay, so now looking at the history of Chinese medicine in both the US and China, we start with China. It is recognized that far back in time, knowledge was passed down orally through familial generations and or from master to apprentice, both of which continued through the ages to modern day. The 6 arts learning disciplines were required for the youth to master, and these disciplines provided meditation skills, moral and social education, physical education, academic study, and arts education. And around 1770, private schools taught by scholars emerged alongside the aristocratic schools. And this period was later referred to as the 100 Schools of Thought, at which time major schools of thought were formally established, including Taoism and the Yin-Yang school. Taoism is the only school of thought that pre-existed among the peasant class and is said to have been founded by Lao Tzu during this time period in which he authored the Tao Te Ching. And there were also minor schools that were never formally established, which included the School of Medicine. And during the Zhou dynasty, philosophers began to perceive regularities in the daily operations of the universe that appeared to be governed by natural laws. These laws then became closely tied to a concept of patterned relationships among all worldly phenomena, resulting in the yin-yang and wuxing doctrines. These were then extended to the understanding of the human body, thus establishing the origin of classical Chinese medicine. The Huangdi Nei Jing is a major Chinese medicine compilation of these theories still taught and practiced today. Now, reforms in the education system occurred in 1898, and modern schools for primary, secondary, and college level education were fashioned after the Western models. Traditional Chinese medicine is now taught at the college level. In 2017, TCM was introduced into the 5th grade curriculum, and it consisted of a 2-volume textbook with 36 story lessons, focusing on all basic aspects of TCM. These lessons are an attempt to teach students how to take care of themselves, prevent diseases, build a strong physique, and understand and value health. In the US, health education started around the late 1800s. In modern day health education, state laws allow local school boards and teachers the options of teaching introductory courses on Chinese medicine if the courses fit within the respective state's curriculum standards. Some schools have independently implemented single topics of a salutogenic health education, such as mindfulness programs. And Chinese medicine is currently taught at the collegiate level. Now, looking at the laws, the federal law, Every Student Succeeds Act, is the main education law for all primary and secondary public schools to provide quality education for all students and to be accountable for how students learn and achieve. Now, each state is responsible for developing its own curriculum standards and testing requirements. So to narrow the study down from the 50 states, the NCCOM website was researched for the states with the most accredited practitioners. And the top 3 were California, New York, and Florida. A search of Google Scholar and PubMed was also completed. Access to the New York Department of Education website was not permitted, so it was omitted from this research. Then I did a search of Google Scholar and PubMed, looking for the term acupuncturist distribution. The most current distribution article was chosen. The states with the highest practitioner density for the state's populations were Hawaii, Oregon, and Vermont. I then researched each of these 5 states, their Department of Education official websites for the respective education curricula standards. Now, all 5 states indicated the use or adoption of the National Health Education Standards. The state of Florida also included a character education standard. And to test the salutogenic framework into other educational subject areas, the science curriculum standards for each state were researched. And here, all 5 states used the next generation science standards. And again, Florida had an additional nature of science discipline. The music curriculum standards were also researched, and California, Vermont, and Oregon adopted the National Core Art Standards. However, these standards only go from kindergarten through 8th grade. Florida and Hawaii identified their own music standards, and the state of Hawaii's music standards did not identify the applicable grade levels, but they could be applied to all grades. The state of Florida identified music standards kindergarten through 12th grade. So you'll notice that the state of Florida curricula standards were all chosen for this research. As far as the classical Chinese text, 2 major philosophical and medical texts that form the basis of classical Chinese medicine were chosen for the study. The first, the Tao Te Ching, is the foundational text of Taoist philosophy that is the basis of Chinese medicine, and 2 translations were used. The Ames and Hall translation included new information from older manuscripts found from the archaeological digs of Ma Wangdu in 1973 and Guadian in 1993. Now, these manuscripts are older extant versions than what was previously available. What was previously available had been copied down many times through the ages. So these manuscripts are important because they provide us with the original thoughts at their time. The Hendricks translation included the Chinese text of the 2 Ma Wangdu manuscripts with English translation, while the Ames and Hall translation included the Chinese text along with the English translation for each chapter. The second major text, the Huangdi Ne Jing, is the oldest extant text establishing the medical concepts of the yin-yang and wuxing principles. Now, since this study was limited to the basic concepts, only the Su Wen portion of the Ne Jing was researched. Unshold and Tessenow's 2-volume Huangdi Ne Jing Su Wen translation is considered the premier translation of the Su Wen, and it includes robust commentaries from Chinese and Japanese scholars and clinicians. Other renowned translations of individual chapters of the Su Wen were used for comparison, and they also had robust commentaries, and they were done by renowned sinologists, translators, scholars, and they had both the English text with the Chinese text with the English translation. Now, additional texts were used for the robust explanations of the basic principles and theories of Chinese medicine. The yin-yang and wuxing texts were referenced for the detailed subject areas by a renowned translator. The introductory chapters of 2 additional Chinese medical texts were used for the robust explanations of the basic theories of Chinese medicine. Okay, so the first thing I did was evaluate the classical tests and define the core competencies. And then I assigned these competencies to the state standards. So the intent is to provide knowledge to make healthy lifestyle choices and behaviors, and not to diagnose and to treat oneself. So I limited this research to the overview of the Tao, Qi, Yin Yang, and Wuxing principles. And as we saw before, the health curriculum consisted of health education and character education disciplines. The science curriculum consisted of 5 disciplines. I omitted the computer science discipline because it only went through from 6th through 12th grade. However, it could be a future area to address. I did find research articles using Tao philosophy for study in artificial intelligence, The music curriculum consisted of 5 disciplines. The critical thinking and reflection and the innovation, technology, and future disciplines were not omitted. However, no competencies were assigned to these disciplines. The critical thinking and reflection focused on critiquing one's own and others' works, where the innovation, technology, and the future discipline focused on careers and music. Okay, so looking at the results of the competencies, basic conceptual competencies are required for primary and secondary students as it relates to the application of classical Chinese philosophy in health maintenance and well-being. Now, the Tao is the fundamental principle to which all natural phenomena adhere, including human behavior. The Tao is that level of reality that existed before all things, the emergent process that created all things, including the physical universe and all things in it, and continues to provide the energy and potential for all things to mature in accordance with their own nature. Thus, the first basic competency. When a person has attained the mental state of stillness, there is an openness to reality that allows one to participate in the dynamic and processual ways that transforms the person from their participation in this space, from who they were to who they are becoming. And research studies have concluded that meditation, Qigong, and Tai Chi practices all have positive effects on mental and emotional health and conflict adaptation, thus competencies 6 and 7. The concept of Qi is required for understanding the interaction and flow of all phenomena and living beings. The concept of Qi is applied and it is visible in all scientific phenomena. So a basic understanding of Qi is required to understand the Yin Yang and Wuxing principles, thus necessitating competency 8. We look at the character competencies. I chose to use the moral virtue definition of day in the Tao Te Ching. And the Tao virtuous manner is behaving in such a way by allowing the natural spontaneous equilibrium of the event or interaction, such that both parties respond by promoting the interest and well-being of each other. That is to say, without causing harm or disrespect to oneself and others. It is also self-cultivation of proper behavior and restraint. And students are required to understand the basic concepts of day to behave in a natural, spontaneous ways to maintain mental and emotional health and prevent violent behaviors. Now, since the character education standards were new in Florida in 2021, and I found little detail describing these standards and the rationale behind them, I wanted to express the breadth of day, so I identified a few more competencies in this section. I limited this section to current behavior risks that contribute to injuries from violence as well as emotional health imbalance, since bullying, discrimination, sexual violence, and suicide are current risk behaviors among adolescents. So the questions then become, how does one behave to prevent conflicts and also to maintain one's own emotional balance and that of another party? Hence competencies 3 and 4. And throughout the Tao Te Ching, the sage ruler is described as behaving in accordance with the Tao and the day. And this brought about competency number 5. Now, understanding basic yin yang and wuxing principles and being able to apply and demonstrate this understanding of classical Chinese medicine is required for basic knowledge to make healthy lifestyle choices and behaviors. And this basic knowledge is primarily described in detail in the first 5 chapters of the Su Wen. This is where the last 4 competencies came from. Okay, so now what I have here is a mapping of the competencies to the state of Florida curricula's standards. And these competencies go across the next 2 slides. So let's see here. For the health curricula, 7 out of the 8 health education standards were assigned all 12 classical Chinese competencies, and more than one competency could be assigned to a single standard. The only health education standard not assigned a competency was the one titled Accessing Information. Okay. 6 competencies, these 6 here, were applied to all 6 character education standards. 5 competencies were applied to all 18 science standards across the 4 chosen science disciplines. And last here, 3 competencies were applied to 6 of the 9 music standards across the 3 chosen music disciplines. So when I started this research, I had 3 aims. By following the Tao philosophy, Qi, Yin Yang, and Wuxing principles, one can ascertain healthy lifestyle choices and behaviors, such as eating the correct diet, appropriate dress, and appropriate sleep times for the season to be in accord with nature. The Tao philosophy supported character education and the state of Florida's goals of providing core ethical values, such as respect and responsibility for self and others. The Tao philosophy and the Yin Yang and Wuxing principles were established from observations of the interrelationships between the physical and immaterial phenomena in the universe. Applications of the Yin Yang and Wuxing principles in current research include physics, mathematics, mixed methods research, and molecular biology. Music was taught as one of the 6 arts in ancient China to instill a sense of harmony and increase memory and language skills. The pentatonic scale is listed in the Wuxing qualities of Qi, and current research in classical Chinese medical philosophy principles of Yin Yang and Wuxing using sound therapy result in reducing stress, impacted the mood and the well-being of the study patients. So in conclusion, the Tao philosophy, Qi, and the principles of Yin Yang and Wuxing provide a viable theoretical framework for a salutogenic health education model, as well as other educational disciplines supporting a sustainable future. This framework potentially provides all children, regardless of their social determinants of health, a means to survive as healthy as possible until their natural completion of life. So I'd like to thank you all for listening. And I am now open to questions. And I got to figure out how to stop sharing. There we go.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Lee? No questions.